It is April 1945. The Pacific lies in ruins. The Empire of Japan, once blazing across half the ocean, now bleeds in retreat. Only one island remains between the advancing Americans and the homeland itself, Okinawa. To the Japanese High Command, this island is more than soil and coral. It is the keystone of the Empire's southern gate, the final shield before the home islands. Lose Okinawa, and the Emperor's heartland stands exposed. General Mitsuru Ushijima, commander of the 32nd Army, knows the odds. Around him, his chief of staff, Isamu Chō, vows to fight to the death. Beneath them, engineers carve a honeycomb of tunnels into the ridges of Shuri and Mabuni. Thousands of tons of rock conceal artillery, mortars, and the last remaining tanks of the Imperial Army, the 27th Tank Regiment. Across the sea, the United States gathers its might. Under Lieutenant General Simon Believer Buckner, Jr., the 10th Army readies 183,000 men, supported by more than 1,300 ships. Among them sail veterans of Tarawa, Peleliu, Saipan, and Iwo Jima, men who have seen hell and expect to find it again. April 1st, 1945, Easter Sunday. Dawn reveals an ocean of steel stretching to the horizon. Battleships, cruisers, and carriers thunder against the island's southern half. The earth shakes, then silence. When the first Marines and soldiers storm the beaches at Hagushi, they find nothing. No bullets, no resistance, only the wind and the ghosts of expectation. For 6 days they advance almost unopposed. Then, as they near the high ground of Shuri Ridge, the island awakens. Hidden artillery opens from every ridge. Mortars crash down from unseen caves. Machine gun fire rakes the fields. The Americans have stepped into a trap, Ushijima's plan unfolding exactly as designed. Night of April 5th. Deep in the caves near Shuri, the 27th Tank Regiment receives its final order. Their commander, Colonel Nakashima, knows his Type 95 Heigo and Type 97 Chiha tanks are hopelessly obsolete. Thin-skinned, undergunned, relics facing the 75mm cannon of the American Sherman. Yet his men salute with calm pride. They paint rising sun emblems on the hulls, load the last shells, and drive into the rain-soaked dark. When they break cover, the ground trembles. American forward observers spot movement. Tanks! Japanese tanks! And flares blossom across the sky. The battlefield erupts in flame. Hagos blaze like lanterns as shells pierce their armor. One Chiha lurches forward even as its turret burns. Sergeant Takahashi at the controls. He drives straight into a Sherman, ramming it head-on. The two machines vanish in a fireball that lights the ridge for miles. By dawn, the 27th Tank Regiment is gone. 80 tanks reduced to twisted wrecks. The last armored charge of the Empire, over in a single night. Sugar Loaf Hill. The Americans press south toward Naha, meeting resistance that defies imagination. Between May 12th and 18th, a small mound called Sugar Loaf Hill becomes the center of the storm. The 6th Marine Division, commanded by General Lemuel Shepard, attacks again and again. Japanese troops from the 15th Independent Mixed Regiment pour fire from interlocking bunkers, supported by mortars hidden in the ruins. The Marines take the hill by day and lose it again by night. Rain turns everything to sludge. Bodies slide down the slopes. Rifles jam with mud. A single company of Marines loses 3 commanding officers in as many hours. When the hill finally falls, its crest is only a yard high. The rest blown away by artillery. Of 2,000 Marines who attack, fewer than half walk back down. The Japanese defenders, all gone. Fire from the sea and sky. Offshore, the U.S. Navy faces its own nightmare. Between April 6th and May 25th, Japan unleashes Operation Kikusui, the largest wave of kamikaze attacks ever seen. From Kyushu's airfields, hundreds of Zero fighters and bomb-laden trainers dive upon the fleet. Destroyers vanish in plumes of smoke. The carrier Bunker Hill burns for hours after 2 suiciders crash into her deck, killing nearly 400 sailors. But nothing embodies Japan's desperation more than the sortie of the battleship Yamato, the pride of the Imperial Navy. On April 7th, the largest warship ever built sails from Tokuyama with just enough fuel for a one-way journey to Okinawa. Her orders: beach herself, and become an unsinkable fortress. American reconnaissance spots her within hours. Hundreds of carrier aircraft descend upon the giant. Bombs and torpedoes tear open her flanks. At 2:23 p.m., Yamato explodes, a fireball so vast it is seen 100 miles away. Over 3,000 sailors perish. With her dies the dream of Japan's naval glory, civilians in the crossfire. As the armies clash, Okinawa's civilians, farmers, teachers, children, are trapped between annihilation and despair. The Japanese military orders them to support the defense, warning that Americans will kill or torture them if captured. In makeshift hospitals, teenage girls known as the Himeyuri Student Nurses tend the wounded, 17, 16, 15 years old. They bandage shattered limbs, carry bloodied stretchers, and whisper comfort to dying soldiers. When U.S. forces close in, their underground hospital at Habaru becomes a tomb. Grenades roll through corridors. The air fills with smoke and screams. Some of the girls choose death over capture, clutching grenades to their chests. By June's end, 211 of the 240 Himeyuri students are dead. Their classmates' letters, later found in the rubble, speak only of duty and sorrow. If only the war would end, the wounded could go home. By late May 1945, the rain never stops. The monsoon turns foxholes into ponds, rifles into rust, and men into ghosts. For nearly 2 months, the Japanese 32nd Army has clung to the southern hills, a fortress line stretching from Shuri Castle to the ridges of Yonabaru. General Ushijima's headquarters lies deep inside a limestone cavern beneath Shuri Castle, a seat of Ryukyuan kings turned into the empire's last command post. Outside, the U.S. 10th Army pounds the ridges day and night. Battleships offshore hurl 14-inch shells. Artillery batteries on land shake the earth in rolling thunder. Each yard of ground costs lives. A platoon takes a cave. Within hours, Japanese troops crawl out of another tunnel behind them. Flamethrowers and demolition charges become the only language of progress. By May 29th, Shuri Castle itself stands in ruins. Marines from the 1st Division raise the stars and stripes over the smoking stones, but the victory feels hollow, because the defenders have already slipped away to the south, ordered to fight on to the very end. The broken armor. Behind that retreat, the last remains of the 27th Tank Regiment crawl through the mud. A few Type 90s still move, engines coughing, tracks wrapped in wire to hold them together. Mechanics scavenge parts from burned hulks. Gunners share the final rounds between crews. At dawn on June 4th, near the town of Itaman, one surviving Chiha ambushes an American column from the 193rd Tank Battalion. It fires twice, knocking out a half-track before a 75mm shell from a Sherman ends its life in a single flash. Those steel carcasses, scattered across the ridges, mark the end of Japan's armored dream. The last armor of the empire now rusts beneath torrential rain. The final defense. By mid-June, the surviving Japanese soldiers, many wounded, starving, half-mad, gather around Mabuni Hill. General Ushijima's remaining staff counts barely 30,000 men fit for combat. American loudspeakers blare surrender appeals across the valleys. Few listen. When the assault begins, artillery tears apart the coral slopes. The 6th Marine Division advances one ridge at a time, sometimes fighting hand-to-hand inside caves. The 1st Marine Regiment captures a system of tunnels only to discover entire companies of enemy soldiers dead by their own grenades. Civilians flee in waves, mothers clutching infants, elders carrying white flags. Many are cut down in crossfire, others hide in caves already packed with the dead. A Marine corporal later writes, "The whole hill breathed like a furnace, each cave exhaling death." Night, June 21st. Inside a cave at Mabuni, General Ushijima sits with his chief of staff, General Isamu Chō. They share tea. Outside, artillery flashes light the cave mouth like lightning. Chō, ever impetuous, recites a final poem. "We are determined to die with the emperor and nation. May future generations forgive our failure." At dawn, both men perform seppuku. Their aides burn the flags and bury the swords in the cave floor. The empire's last generals have kept their vow. When American patrols find the site 2 days later, they salute silently. The war on Okinawa is over. The numbers defy comprehension. More than 12,000 Americans killed, nearly 49,000 wounded. On the Japanese side, over 100,000 soldiers dead, and civilians, men, women, and children, between 100,000 and 150,000 souls lost, 1/3 of Okinawa's population. The island itself is unrecognizable. Villages erased, rice fields churned into mud and bone. In 1 square mile near Shuri, investigators count more than 10,000 corpses. Among the survivors are a handful of Himeyuri girls, faces burned, clothes in tatters, wandering through the ruins calling the names of classmates who will never answer. For weeks after the surrender, Marines still hear explosions echoing from the hills, trapped soldiers choosing death over capture. The fighting has ended, but dying continues. Consequence and shadow. Okinawa changes everything. In Washington and Tokyo alike, generals study the carnage and see the same conclusion. If the Americans invade the main islands, casualties will soar into the millions. 2 months later, the atomic bomb will fall on Hiroshima, then Nagasaki, each detonation carrying the ghostly echo of Okinawa's warning. The island had already shown what no surrender truly meant. For the Japanese, it was the last stand of honor. For the Americans, the final proof that the war must end by any means. Today, Okinawa breathes again. The ridges are green with sugarcane. Children fly kites where shells once burst. The limestone caves remain. Silent, cool, their walls scarred by fire. On Mabuni Hill, a granite monument stands facing the sea. Its inscription reads simply, "Requiem for all who perished." Thousands of names, Japanese, American, Okinawan, carved side by side. In the stillness, the wind carries no language of enemies, only the shared sorrow of the dead. Sometimes at sunset, the horizon glows the same orange as the fires that once consumed the island. And in that light, the imagination hears a faint rumble, tracks grinding through mud, engines whispering from beneath the earth. The ghosts of the last armor of the empire, rolling forever across the fields of Okinawa. Then silence. Only waves, only peace.